Hello, and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Dr. Joe Pina. Joe, it's so great to have you with me today. Thanks for being with me.
Hi, Amanda. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, before we get started, I'm going to ask you my little icebreaker question that I ask all my guests. Would
Okay.
you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
That's a good one. I guess the thing that I would say is I like to walk my dog. And the reason is it's a great opportunity for me to get my exercise in twice a day. I have the time to be able to do that, so we do it in the morning and the afternoon. And I have a connection with our dog. She's the family dog, and everyone loves her. So it's a great opportunity to be outside with her. And it's also a great opportunity for me to reflect. It's
Mm,
kind of my meditation. That's the way I look at it. And I listen to a lot of things. I listen to audiobooks. I probably listen to this podcast doing that. Um, but I reflect on a lot of things. I'm currently retired. So I've had a great career in the past. And at this point now, I think about what this phase of life means to me
mm.
and my family. And so I love it. It's great walking the dog. It's very simple, easy exercise. So I guess that
Yeah.
would be it. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I love sort of all the components that go into that, right? Not just,
Hmm.
being with the dog, being outdoors, getting some exercise, but I love the piece around the reflection, and that's almost like your daily meditation.
Mm.
And just bringing that into it and, all the insights that you must gain from that amount of time
Yeah.
in that space. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And actually, I do listen to, I can't remember the podcast I should, but I listen to, there is a meditation for walking dogs, which
Oh,
I had never heard of before. And this guy, oh man, I can't remember. I should have written it down. His name is John, but he has a series. And he doesn't use it with music. So that's one thing. I like background music, the mood music with it. So
mm,
that's the one thing. But there are other podcasts too, or YouTube videos that you can listen to for walking your dog. And I
nice.
usually listen to one or two of those, a few times a week, amongst, audiobooks and other things as well. But that's kind of cool. It's really
Yeah,
interesting.
that is cool. I mean, it is really cool, and I'm like, well, of course it exists because there's something for everything.
Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't have guessed. Yeah, it's kind of fun. And I think Lady, that's her name. She's a black-mouthed cur, which is if you don't know, it's a southern dog. It's a mix, and but it's bred. So then you actually have this black-mouthed cur. They all look kind of the same. They have floppy
Mm,
ears, about 65 pounds, and they have kind of a black muzzle, which has gray hairs as they get older. And she's a delight. And we got her from Georgia when my daughter uh, got her down from a rescue,
mm.
and but couldn't keep her down there because she was whiny as a pup and was in an apartment. And so we said, yeah, we'll take her. And so she's been with us for, oh my God, I think probably about 7 or 8 years now.
Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so awesome. All right.
Mm,
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we're just gonna go ahead and dive right in now, if you don't mind.
sure. Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's great. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, we do talk about coaching here on this
Hmm.
podcast. So, and I'm sure, as people heard that, you are a doctor, you're retired now. And so I would love maybe for you to share, what has brought you here? What's been your journey and, why are we talking about coaching today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I have to say that I feel blessed with the journey that I've had, and it's continuing at this point. I will just put just for some context. I'm an Army physician by training, pulmonary critical care, so that's lung medicine and intensive care, which I had a great career with, and I was in the Army for 30 years. and was able to practice, knew the value of building relationships and having good, strong teams, because if the teams don't work in the ICU, patients die, and they can die quickly. So you have to have good teams. And so there are a lot of dynamics that I kind of grew from that about, how do you communicate with people? How do you build relationships? And that stuck with me as a sort of a common theme. And then I also learned about servant leadership in the Army and how to be a leader. And I was a commander twice, near the end of my career, and learned about selfless service and how we, support our teams and do what we can to protect them and understand that they need to be protected, before we can really do any good for the patient. So that's kind of an interesting theme that sort of got stuck in my mind. And then after I retired from the Army, I went, basically took a job as a chief medical officer in a civilian hospital and a surgical hospital. And that I did that for about 3 years. And for the first half of that, things went really well. It was a great job. I got along with everyone very well and loved the nursing staff, loved my peers. But the latter half, things sort of changed, and it was right around COVID. So that was the big, landscape at the time, and it was incredibly stressful. And our hospital and many other hospitals around the country were woefully unprepared for everything that came in and the level of death that occurred, and things that we saw, undersupply, not enough things to protect the people who were supposed to take care of the patients. And so very stressful, when even though I was used to seeing death on my watch as an ICU doctor, I didn't really saw it at the level that it did at that time. And I was an executive at that time. So it was very stressful. And then there were changes in leadership, and there were things that we just didn't really make sense to me. So I left that position, and I left under a fair amount of stress. And I think after that, I took a job in contracting, working with the VA. But then a contract came up with the VA for leader coaching. And in particular in the area of high reliability organizations, which relates to patient safety. It's a whole field that, you do the right thing at the right time for everybody. It's about just culture. It's about psychological safety, where people can speak up if they see something that is dangerous or is a problem. So then ultimately the patients would be taken care of. So that was that really fit in well with my mindset as to how we should be taking care of our patients and taking care of our teams. But as I did the coaching for about 5 or 6 years with the VA, focusing on the patient safety piece. But I learned a lot about my experience as a chief medical officer, because it was really traumatic. And I do have some post-traumatic stress, I would say, when I think about that time. And I realized that, and it's taken several years, I realized that, I was blaming other people for what happened, and for my being, dismissed from that job, essentially. And I had never been dismissed from a job before. And, it's not fun to be fired. But I was in the mode of blaming other people and say, oh, my boss was horrible, my teammates, they rejected me for whatever reason, and the situation was out of hand. But ultimately, I got to the point where I said, I think I probably was neglecting myself. And I ultimately, when I got into the field of self-compassion and read the material of Kristen Neff, who's a PhD in psychology, and she has a whole website and whole genre about self-compassion, that kind of framed everything totally different for me. And I started using that in my coaching practice. But more importantly for me, I understood that, hey, I was putting out and supporting people, and the word I like to use is over empathize. And so when that was happening, I wasn't taking care of myself. And I realized that the burnout that I suffered while at the tail end of that time really had a lot to do with the fact that I wasn't asking for help. I wasn't looking out for I wasn't speaking even in positive terms about myself. I would be thinking about, many things that were detrimental, and I wasn't really positive about it. So when our coaching contract actually ended with the VA through the government efficiency program at the time, I basically decided I was going to retire. But there was still that spark of coaching, and I got into intuitive coaching, which I just came across on a meetup, and I said, hey, this might be something that I might want to get into, and that might work well with the self-compassion piece.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how I ended up here, joining this class with Ilkate, and we have our graduation coming up, and it's been really a lot of fun, looking through the lens of intuitive coaching, but focusing on self-compassion. And in particular, I'm really interested in the balance between servant leadership and
Hmm.
self-compassion, which I mentioned the word selfless service back.
Hmm.
Well, that seems to go as opposites to self-compassion. And
Yeah.
the great leaders who are out there are able to have that balance. But it is a fallacy to say that you can do everything for everybody else and you come, second, or your family comes second. Really, if you don't put yourself first, you don't put your oxygen mask on first
Yeah.
before you treat your child, the child suffers, everybody suffers.
Right.
So that's this it's put a different spin on what my life purpose is. It's
Hmm.
about taking care of myself and my family first, then I'll take care of everybody else that, wants it.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and thank you for your service. And I
Appreciate
sort
it.
of, yeah, I love sort of how it's sort of come from, that selfless leadership to,
Hmm.
realizing that there was some self-compassion that had been lacking and not t having had taken that time for yourself. And then now sort of coming to this point where realizing and recognizing how important that is, that
Hmm.
self-compassion and putting your oxygen mask on first. So then you're full and then you can bring your whole self and serve others. So
Right.
thank you so much for sharing that. I love sort of that, realization that you had and sort of where you are now. And so I'd love to find out, so what is next for you? You mentioned graduation is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so, what are the next steps for you in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm in the stage of my life. I'm in retirement. So it's
Hmm.
not just retirement from the army, it's retirement from the rat race, and it's first of all, it's fantastic. So everybody should be looking forward to their retirement. And I think most people don't retire early enough. They think they have to keep on working because they need to have a big enough nest egg.
Hmm.
If you don't have a financial advisor who you can work with, then you may be just guessing, and you might actually find out that you could have retired much sooner and had more, quality years. But in any case, I retired. I'm 64 now, so I retired last year when our contract was cut, and it's been great. No real deadlines except for graduation, right, and final exams. But no more of those crazy stinking deadlines, no more, complicated PowerPoint presentations, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm at the point though, I don't have to work to sustain ourselves because we already have that. So it's nice to be financially independent.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people in our country, they don't have that luxury. So sad to say. But in our situation, we're able to do this. So I can kind of do whatever I want. And what I want to do is to do some coaching. But I'm not shooting for a big full-time, big practice, kind of like what you are doing. But I like to do things like this, just, chat on podcasts, talk to, catch up with friends who I haven't talked to in a while. But as far as the coaching is concerned, I love the idea of the Ilkate, the intuitive coaching, doing the deeper dive, getting beyond you know, you know, what's the face of the conversation at hand with the first question that the client has, and really kind of get into the root cause. A lot of it has to do with self-esteem and boundaries and all that stuff, and I find that very fascinating. And honestly, when I coached with the VA, I didn't use those tools that much, but now I do. And so I think what I'm doing more pro bono coaching at this point, so don't tell Katya because she'll flip out. No, she won't. No, she won't. But I've been doing that actually interestingly enough, for the government for at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center up in Bethesda, Maryland. Um, there are leaders there who I am coaching pro bono, which is interesting because the federal government cut many of these coaching
Mm.
contracts. But if you're not being paid, then you don't need a contract, and they're happy to take your services. So that's what I'm doing now, and I would like to work part-time, maybe get some paid clients. But as long as I keep on doing that, I also teach in a course in what's known as team steps, and I won't go into the detail of that, but that's basically a patient safety course that I used to teach when I was an active duty Army physician. But now I teach as a Red Cross worker, so that's also pro bono volunteer. And I do that at Fort Belvoir, which is the Alexandra T. Augusta Military Medical Center. I think it's the name of it now, but Fort Belvoir is the original name. And that's down in Virginia, and not too far from where I live. And it's really a lot of fun teaching that course to people to learn the basics of communication, relationships, and the strength of teams, going back to the theme that I talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. And I do that all for free. I'm laughing, I'm joking a little bit. I'm not looking for being paid necessarily to do it. That would be nice. But I'm looking for just doing it and making people's lives richer.
Mm.
Knowing that first and foremost, I'm going to take care of myself. We're doing some traveling. The family, I'm focusing on my daughter, our only child who's living with us now. The other two daughters are out of the house, but working to build memories and experiences with them. So, travel, international, domestic, phone calls, come to visit them, they come visit us. And also our in-house daughter, working to get her set up for success as she goes out into the real world. That's where my purpose lies in there. So
Yeah. Wow.
there you go.
I love that. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that because I love what you said around you know, just talking what we talked about earlier about the self-compassion. Like you're taking the time, right, to do things that are enriching for your family, right? Spending time with family, with your
Sure.
daughters,
Hmm.
creating memories and experiences, and
Hmm.
with that fullness and richness of life, you're you're then going out and serving others in this work that you're doing, coaching and the teaching that you're doing. So,
Hmm.
really just, living this amazing full life, having all the things in your own home and then being able to share all of the
Hmm.
things, all of your experiences, all the your learnings with others and just giving that back. I love that. And I think, I think a lot, and I know what you said around, you know, doing it for free. And sometimes there's a little thing around like, yes, it's great to be able to give back, give things for free. But there's also that sort of as just going back to like, it would be nice to have some paid clients because, there is
Hmm.
always some sort of exchange sort of needed in order for people to sometimes feel value in what it is that
Right.
you're doing, right? And
Totally agree.
I like to talk about that just because,
Hmm.
when we think about, I think a lot of us coaches would probably do it all for free, because most of us are doing it because we do feel that we want to give back in some way to
Hmm.
others
Hmm.
because
Right.
oftentimes we've gotten to this point because we experienced this gift from someone else, right? Like we experienced coaching or we benefited from so much in life that we want to be able to share.
Sure.
Um, and I think a lot of coaches feel sort of that hesitancy to charge for what it is that they do. But, in order for some people to feel that it's what you're giving is valuable, that there should be some sort of exchange.
Totally agree. I totally agree with that. No, and so I don't want to dilute the waters, if you will.
Hmm.
And also, it's not my intent to make coaching any less professional than it needs to be. And so the transactional piece is part of that. People should be paying for a service and they should get a certain quality. So I totally agree with you on that. And I do think that people, if they pay for it, they're going to be actually more compliant with even coming to the sessions and that. So I get that totally. So I agree, and I haven't written that off at this point, but I don't think I'm going to have such a large cadre of clients that it's going to impact the coaching profession
Yeah.
in a negative way.
Sure. And I do, you know, I really appreciate the fact that you are sort of doing this pro bono work, especially since, you know, government funding has sort of cut those programs. And so what you're doing right now, just because of the situation
Hmm.
there, is just so honorable. And I love that you're doing that and providing that service. Otherwise, you know, some service that they otherwise wouldn't get because there isn't funding for that right now. So,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know, and in terms, and my plan is also, I mean, as I do these, I mean, I focus on leadership with this coaching. So it's
Hmm.
leadership, it's executive leadership coaching. And once we're done with our 3 months, because it's not open-ended, it's like for 3 months, maybe 6 sessions in that time period. After that, if the client wants to go on to actually do more life coaching and go beyond that, then that's something we'll take as a one-on-one outside of the government sector completely, and that's where the pay would come in, and
Mm.
that's sort of my plan. We'll see how that works, but that's kind of my vision as to where we would go with this, where I would go with
Yeah.
this.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I like that plan. It sounds great.
Yeah, well, have me back in a year, and I'll tell you if it's working or not. I do think that's good.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So I just want to be cognizant of time here. I think
Hmm. Hmm.
we're going for almost half an hour. So I do want to start to just start to
Yeah,
wrap up a little bit here.
sure.
Um, but before we end, you know, I always like to, you know, just offer some time. Are there any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience today? Anything else that you'd like to put out into the world?
Yeah, well, again, I go back to this idea of self-compassion. It has really been a thrill for me to explore that. And it was from a nursing podcast, actually, I was listening. So, physicians and nurses sometimes they dig at each other, and but it was great because nurses are probably the healthcare field that has the highest rate of burnout,
Mm,
and physicians are pretty high too. But the self-compassion, I think I can't emphasize enough how important it is for people to don't sacrifice the things that are most important for you in order to take care of others. There is a saying that you don't want to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm.
mm,
And I really feel that's a mantra that I can stick out on my computer screen. No matter what. And when I say yourself and you, I also include the family. Your family uh, really needs to come first, no matter what you pursue, because it will be all for naught if you don't have that as your core. And so I really think when people think about their life purpose and the work purpose, don't forget about yourself and your family. And I personally think that should be number one. And then you move on to, how are you going to serve others? I hear people talk about serving others as their life purpose. That's all I want
mm.
to do. That's me. But the reality is that you need to take care of yourself, especially your health, your wellness, your exercise. All that really should be your top priority. That's my perspective. So
Mm.
that's my word of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I like what you just said at the very end there around because when you talk about self-compassion, I think, being kind to yourself, like doing the self-care things, but the last piece that you just threw in there around physical health too.
Hmm.
Because, sometimes that is one of the things that sort of gets forgotten when you're
Hmm.
thinking about all the things in life, all the stressors, coming back to sort of what's important for you. It's not just sort of the what you're spending your time on and maybe your time and energy on, and
Hmm.
sort of reducing the stress level because actually that stress level does impact physical health too, but
Hmm.
remembering to like do all the good things, right? Like what you do, the exercise, getting outside, um,
Sure. What do
all
you
those
do?
things.
What do you
What do
do?
I do?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, I just actually recently started working out again. It's been a while because I haven't prioritized it. It's something that I've been wanting to
Mm,
prioritize for a really long time, and I struggled with finding what was going to
yeah.
work for me, right, to be able to fit it in. The eating part I've had down pat like for years.
Okay,
I'm
that's
like
good.
because
I'm
that for
working
me
on it.
like yeah, for me healthy eating is a choice because you have to eat regardless. So what you choose to eat is for me
Mhm.
that was super easy because it was a choice. I'm choosing this over this, right? Something
Sure.
healthier over something that's not healthier. But for me the exercise was
Hmm.
something that I needed to add time in for, right? Because
Yeah,
it's
right.
not like a choice. I actually need to spend time on it. Like with eating, it's like I'm going to cook regardless. So what I choose to eat is easy because I'm already putting the time in to prepare food. But for me, the exercise was hard because that was like, okay, so I need to make the time for this. And I know how important
Sure.
it is.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But finding something that I'm going to stick with that I enjoy, because for me, I needed to enjoy it. I can't just go to the gym because that
Yeah,
to me is not fun.
right.
I needed to find something that I was going to find joy in because I feel
Yeah,
like if I can find joy in the movement, that I'm going to stick with and
I
do.
love
And
it.
so
Yeah,
I
I
was
love
able
it.
to find an app that I really enjoy with
Oh, okay.
exercises that I can custom like on a daily basis to what I want to focus on, what part of my
Hmm.
body I want to work on. And it's been really awesome and it's really fun because it's gamified, right? So I'm on like a 62-day streak now.
Woohoo, good for you. All right. I love
So
it.
yeah, yeah. So I think, with anything, you got to find out what works for you, what you
Hmm.
find joy in, what you find enjoyable. Because if it's like work, who wants to do that?
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it. I love that. Great. Good for you. That's
Yeah.
excellent. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks. So yeah, so and I just love also like your walks. When I asked you, what brings you joy, you mentioned the
Hmm.
walks, but that is, that's a health component too. That's right, the exercise. So
Absolutely.
say it goes
Absolutely.
back to the same thing of finding what you find joy in, like what is
Yeah,
that thing? And
right.
then yeah, it just happens when you really enjoy
Hmm.
it.
Oh, absolutely. No, I used to be a runner, and my knees now tell me that
Mm.
that's not in the cards anymore. So walking has really done quite well. So I appreciate that.
Thanks again for being on, and it was a pleasure chatting with you.
Sure. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace Balance Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.